Okay, thanks very much everybody for being patient. We're going to get started now. I've been really looking forward to doing this session for quite a few weeks now because it's a subject that I am really passionate about. I personally know that hiring managers can make a huge difference in terms of getting candidates to say, yes, I'm interested in having a conversation. LinkedIn tells us that around 80% of people are are not in the market for a job opportunity. So if that's LinkedIn saying it, it's probably actually a lot more than that. Probably 90% of the total addressable market are not interested in looking for new job opportunities. What that means is, I believe, in the day and age where the very best candidates are getting contacted by recruiters regularly, and therefore kind of switch off to it. I was talking to a guy yesterday, came into a meeting with me to do some technical work with us, and he's a software developer, and he said, I get contacted every single day by recruiters, and to be honest, unless I'm looking for a job, I'm kind of immune to that contact. However, what we've seen from, well, since 2009 we've been doing this, what we've seen from putting hiring managers into the middle of the candidate attraction process is people who are not in the market are more likely to be interested in connecting with or talking to or hearing from a hiring manager who's somebody with the same kind of technical background as them, and somebody who, whose job they might want to have in the future. So I'm going to just come on to quick introductions. So my name is Adam Gordon. I'm CEO of Candidate.ID, talent pipeline software business. We provide services around content, around database building, and around managing talent pipelines. Quick introduction. I'm going to ask John and Maury to introduce themselves. John's then going to talk through a really interesting case study of some of the things they've been doing at Carillion. And then Maury's going to talk about some of the amazing things that her business, SparcStart, can do for clients by putting hiring managers into the middle of talent attraction. I won't spoil it by saying any more. So, John, just a quick introduction from you.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Group Head of Resourcing at Carillion. We've been in the news this week, so we've got an interesting week, and our share price has crashed. But recruitment is normal, and we recruit in the UK about 3,500 hires a year, and then globally probably about 5,000 in total. So big business, but actually we don't recruit that many different roles. So we're primarily a construction and a facilities management provider. So while we recruit lots of people, it's probably across 12 or 15 different job types, which is easier or more difficult depending on the geography or market you're in. But often they are very, not generic roles, but similar roles. Adam, do you want me to talk about the scenario we had or having?
No, let's come on to it in a minute. I just got two quick questions. The first is that because you've got a finite number of regular hire positions, that presumably means that pipelining is one of your kind of hot priorities.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was obvious to me 3 years ago when I joined the organisation that once we understood that data, that there was only, like Adam sort of talked to earlier, defined markets or audiences that we were talking to or about at any point in our attraction. So we had to become very specific about the content we serve up, the messaging, the imagery, all of that stuff. But it makes it much simpler. So we don't want to attract the whole world to our roles. We know certainly in our engineering markets, civil engineers, quantity surveyors, there are a limited number in either the UK or globally or in certain locations or with the specific skill sets that some of our jobs require.
Yeah, okay. One other quick question. How much impact did you personally have on the share price crashing and the CEO getting departing earlier?
Absolutely. It is tied. It is correlated. I joined, say, 2.5, 3 years ago when the share price was £3. It is now 50p. So it's absolutely to do with me.
Great. Okay. Fine. Maury, quick introduction from you.
Yeah, great. I'm Maury Hanigan. I'm CEO of SparcStart, and I actually started my career as a classic marketer. I started at Procter & Gamble in brand management, and I'm still a marketer because I understand that recruiting is marketing, and part of what SparcStart does is take a lot of the disciplines and a lot of the knowledge from traditional classics consumer packaged goods marketing and really apply it to recruiting. I mean, there are things that marketers have figured out that are really helpful to recruiters, and we bridge that and put some technology with it to make it easy for people, but that's really our approach to where we fit into the market.
Brilliant. And you know, this theme is not a coincidence. My Candidate.ID co-founder started as a brand marketer at Procter & Gamble. It's just not a coincidence that there's more people with this type of background who are becoming prominent in recruiting. So let me see. On to one more thing that I need to tell you about. If anybody's got any questions for Maury or John, you can do either of two things. You can post them into the chat function, which is on the right-hand side on your GoToWebinar control panel, or you can tweet them using hashtag Candidate.ID. So I'm just going to hand over. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to stay on this slide, and I'm going to just invite John to talk about a couple of the initiatives that I just think are really, really good that you've been undertaking in terms of making use of hiring managers and social media and making them central to talent attraction. So over to you.
So a couple of things. So thanks, Adam. Really, it was there was an aha moment. So I was taking it back 18 months, 2 years in a particular, very specific job type, which is estimating and planning. So for construction firms, they are kind of, very rare, absolutely essential to the startup of a project and ongoing kind of delivery of cost, but they tend to be like hen's teeth. And we, not unlike probably any other business, were highly dependent on agencies. The managers that we were working with had very strong relationships with particular agencies. It was very hard to break. The mythology suggested that none of these candidates ever hung out anywhere else except on agency websites and would only talk to agencies to find roles, etc., etc. Normal story. And it was, lots of banging heads against walls and wondering how we kind of solve this, given that we exist to kind of open up channels for managers and reduce costs for the organisation, etc. And then I think it dawned one day, one of these managers found that an agency found him someone that he actually knew from a previous life, and me and one of the recruiters said to him, look, why don't we just sit down together, give us this opportunity and say, let's look at your LinkedIn profile for starters, let's look at your network. And we just did a very basic network analysis and said, look, out of these people in your network, how many do you really know? How many would you recommend? Who was good, who wasn't, and the light bulb, it was the eureka moment, to use a cliche. And he said, yeah, of course, all these people I either managed, was managed by, know, or someone will know them that knows me, because it's a very tight-knit community. And from very early on, so the initial success was sort of delivered and say, look, let us just kind of contact some of these people on your behalf, right? We'll mention your name, we'll reference you, but it would be really helpful, wouldn't it, if you could talk to some of these people, and then we can vet them, we can do all the stuff that recruiters do, and take the legwork out of it, but they want to hear from you. And that led to a number of candidates or individuals having conversations with him, which was good, which, to cut a long story short, over time he ended up setting up his own LinkedIn group specifically to talk about the stuff that he does and that he does really well. It kind of massaged his ego because, you know, he's the center of it and loves talking about that stuff and himself. But of course, you know, it went probably 2 years ago from 90% agency penetration to now less than 10% in his world, you know, because he is, you know, we'll claim some credit for getting him, you know, to the river to drink, but he has played his part, and it's really powerful. And he even now kind of throws candidates back to us if, you know, if they're not quite right in his world, but he knows that they will fit into a Carillion type of role. So, you know, he's a real ambassador, and it was, I suppose it was one of those moments of a bit of luck and a bit of kind of like light bulb to say, you know, why am I paying an agency £10,000 just to hire someone that I know and have worked with, because we weren't collectively thinking outside the box, outside the traditional. So that was, you know, that took probably 6 to 9 months of kind of, you know, banging the door, you know, beating the drum, and then a bit of persuasion, and then, you know, suddenly it all came together. I wouldn't say it was easy, but suddenly, once he get it, and once you sit with a line manager and they are, you know, by their dint, if they're a leader, they should be well networked. Once they get that, it becomes really simple.
John, how familiar was the hiring manager with social media and the concepts of, you know, getting connected with people that they didn't yet know and stuff like that? And how much coaching did you need to do within your team?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. You know, they were, you know, on LinkedIn. They had some network. They weren't aware of the sort of all the possibilities of the network in that sense. So there was a bit of coaching, a bit of guidance to say, look, you know, improve your profile, look at some groups, look at, you know, because this isn't just about, like Adam said earlier, this isn't just about hiring someone tomorrow or today. This is about improving your kind of knowledge, your own knowledge and understanding of the markets and what's going on. So, you know, we spent some time with him, but it probably in total time, it wasn't more than kind of 2 or 3 hours face to face once he'd kind of had the eureka moment. So it was, you know, he was open to it. It has to be said, but you know, he was a kind of a semi-passive user of LinkedIn.
Yeah. And have other people have other hiring managers within the business looked at that success and taken more interest in interacting with themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean that developed. So you know, we get pockets of hiring manager that not only will, you know, interact in groups and do the stuff that he does, but also will now blog and give us some video content or some content from some work they've done, and whether we share that or they share it through their profile or we share it through our corporate pages just depends. But you know, there's a few sort of very active individuals that really help promote both their own kind of job family or job type, but also the brand, and you know, importantly, and I think it talks to your question, Adam, these aren't corporate sort of videos or blogs. These are heartfelt or something they're passionate about, and it speaks to the people that want to work with them. You know, we don't have a kind of a corporate we don't have a brand police that says you must say this and you must say that. Obviously, but there's some guidance that says don't be daft, and don't slander people and all of that good stuff. But it is, we want them to be authentic and say, look, you know, you're talking to candidates. We want you to say what it's like to work here, you know, or what you can learn, or whatever's interesting to that group. And really, frankly, you know, we know some stuff as recruiters, but you know it far better than we do.
Could you talk a little bit about the LinkedIn group? Is it, I mean, is it been something organic that he's kind of developed and it's gone in its own direction? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it has. You know, we don't monitor him. It's his own group for planners, which, you know, actually, frankly, I wouldn't ever bother kind of going into. But it you know, what it's done is it's, you know, not necessarily by design, but it's increased his profile. Good. From a recruitment point of view, and actually it's probably improved his work as well. So he networks with people virtually all the time, and is getting feedback from the market of, you know, what's going on, what isn't, and And what we found is the byproduct, as well as as that sort of activity has improved our, I suppose, ability to mitigate agency spend. It's also the byproduct is that we get less kind of demand for over benchmark salaries, which sounds really simple, but he's not, when he comes to hire a role, he's not in emergency state. He kind of knows the state of the market, rather than shit, I've got to hire the first CV that an agency puts in front of me. He has some kind of control now, and we have some kind of knowledge, which is control, right?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, certainly LinkedIn groups, I think certainly in the past they've been very, very effective for creating what I would call a talent community, and it sounds like he's created a perfect type of talent community, because he's not branded it as careers at Carillion, he's branded it as this is for planners.
Yeah, this is about my world. Yeah.
Yeah. My question, which is a slight tangent but absolutely related, is just on social media. So I still believe that for what I would call sort of the Michael Page type level of jobs, I still think that LinkedIn is the #1 place to go and find people and to advertise your jobs and go and network and do all that stuff. But I do see things changing a little bit when it comes to groups, and I see other social networks becoming kind of prominent and interesting. Have you got any views on how that's going and any changes that are happening?
Not immediately for us. I mean, we Carillion is a fairly traditional business. There's also a lot of the guys, and mainly guys, unfortunately, are of a certain age and are just sort of coming around to the adoption of LinkedIn per se. We're seeing in other, in perhaps more semi-skilled world, Twitter's becoming a place to chat, and we do some job chats, some tweet ups, I suppose you want to call them, without being kind of overly London centric, but for different types of roles where people can ask questions in real time to people that are doing the role or doing some or similar roles, and we just get some very quick feedback or answer questions that people are worried about. That's kind of working, but we're not using any other kind of networking platforms per se, as in to create communities as yet. Yeah.
Okay. One more quick question from me, which again it's related, but it's a slightly different, is around this whole thing about diversity, because in certain industries, obviously, there's bigger challenges than others, and yours is one of those industries.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
What are the kinds of things that you can do, or maybe you have been doing, or things that you're thinking about doing that are maybe going to make a difference from a gender perspective in particular?
Okay, yeah. I don't think there's a magic bullet. There's some stuff that we're doing around job design. So the fact, so I'll take construction because it's the most obvious kind of world.
Yeah.
Do we have to? Does someone have to be on site on a construction site between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. for example? The answer is probably no, but we're putting it in the job descriptions because it's always been done like that. So there's some work around thinking about that job design to make it more accessible to anybody that may be caring for a family or anybody else. There's some pieces around. We've been doing some pieces around the language we use in attraction. So really thinking about what we found with our graduate campaigns, for example, is rather than putting men that look a bit like me, middle-aged, with PPE, looking at a bit of rail or road, we actually put real people at the heart of those campaigns who are doing those roles, and some of whom are women, some of whom aren't, but talk authentically about what they do and why they came to the role. So it's sort of to represent and say, someone like you could do this role.
Yeah.
So it's thinking carefully about the kind of imagery and words and accessibility of those adverts in that sense. that, you know, a lot of the work is, I mean, around there's a bit about attraction, but also, frankly, it's about internal talent management. So, you know, the debate is ongoing, and we know that in our competitors, they're the same in the UK. They have the same problems. Women fall out of that pyramid, you know, at certain points, and they don't necessarily progress further. But we know that internally we've got a lot of high potential women, so it's kind of breaking down those barriers and helping them either stay with us initially and then moving up through the ranks. So I don't, you know, I wouldn't say we've solved it or there's any magic bullet. It's just hard work. But we, like you alluded to, Adam, you know, the Institute of Civil Engineers, their membership is only 16% female in the UK. So, you know, we're not going to solve this overnight.
No, I suppose if you're mirroring their kind of percentage of on a diversity perspective, you're middle of the road. If you're doing better than that, then you're
that's right.
overperforming.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Fine. Thank you very much. So I'm going to just hand over to John's going to stay with us for any further Q&As that come in, and I'm going to hand over to Maury just now. So I'm just passing on the over the controls. Maury's
actually, okay. Do you want, or do you just want? You've got my slides. Do you just want to keep going through the slides?
Okay, that's fine. I can do that. And if you just say when, I'll just keep. I'll just press the slides in that case. Now the other thing is, I'm going to. We've got a bit of it for those people listening. We've got a slight technical challenge on GoToWebinar, unfortunately, which is that we were going to put on a couple of examples of Sparks, and you'll see what a Spark is in a minute. And unfortunately, we weren't able to play the sound on here, so we're going to share the links in the chat on the right-hand side. So at each point when Maury gets to a new Spark, she's just going to pause for 30-40 seconds so that you can just click on the link independently in the background and just take a look at the Spark yourself.
I'll get to that. All right, if you just go to the first slide, and we'll back up a little bit to this whole piece of how do you leverage your hiring managers, and I love John's example, particularly of the LinkedIn group. I see so many people who think that building a talent community means putting, you know, names and email addresses in a CRM and just leaving them there, and thinking they have a talent community because they've got contact info. Very, very different than, you know, what you guys are doing, having a real conversation among professionals who truly feel like part of a community. That's hard to do at scale, but not necessarily. And that gets us to, you know, the idea of doing it at scale of how do you allocate the responsibility between hiring managers and recruiting. I was at the Talent 42 conference in Seattle 2 weeks ago, and there was a lot of conversation around this. And one of the really interesting things that came out of that were the organizations that had very explicit agreements with their hiring managers, whether it was recruiters who sat down one-on-one and said, look, we need to bring you highly qualified candidates. They are people that you go to conferences with, people that you've worked with in previous jobs, friends of friends, people you went to school with. The highly qualified people you want are part of your world, not necessarily part of the recruiter's world. So some really interesting conversations about, you know, everything from just building pipeline, kind of the very example that John just gave of having true talent communities out there and having people who are at least know the name of your company, know the kind of work you're doing, and have some kind of connection to people with your organization, which is different that we call sourcing, which is really identifying who are potential candidates for this job, and really building a roster of folks that you want to reach out to and talk to, and then obviously the engaging piece. Actually having those conversations. This is all pre-application. They map roughly to the Candidate.ID awareness education consideration. It's really all the kind of pre-application piece. And I threw some slider bars in here. I don't think there's a perfect you know, percentage here. It really does vary from organization to organization. But there's probably a role, or there should be a role, that hiring managers have in all of this. You know, we hear from hiring managers going, you know, this is recruiting's job. you know, this is why we have people in HR that do this. They're just supposed to bring us the qualified candidates. Why are you asking me to do, you know, your job? And if you've got that attitude, I'd encourage you to go find a new job because there's got to be some kind of partnership here. And yes, there is an absolute role for recruiting to keep this process moving well, and there's a lot of value added for recruiting, but it doesn't completely take the responsibility off the hiring managers to have a role in this. So the very first thing is we talk about this whole issue of how do you leverage your hiring manager is either having, you know, sort of company culture or one-on-one relationships with hiring managers where you sit down and you say, let's talk about who's going to do what. Hiring manager, what can you handle? I think at the Talent 42 conference we were all stunned and a little bit in disbelief when a recruiter and hiring manager from Netflix took the stage, and the hiring manager claimed that she spent 50% of her time involved in recruiting. And everybody's necks snapped back and said, really? As a hiring manager, you're spending 50% of your time? But one of the other really interesting things that came out of that discussion was that Netflix recruiters are not responsible for number of hires. It's not one of the metrics that they're measured on. And all the recruiters kind of burst into applause and were thrilled that that had been taken off, you know, recruiters' shoulders. And it was interesting. They said it frees the recruiter up to say, no, let's not hire this person. I don't think this is the right person for the role because they're not measured against how fast and how many butts and seats they do in a given month. So the point is, there's got to be some kind of partnership here. But we're all going to get real and understand that hiring managers, you know, hiring is only a small piece of their responsibilities. They're running their businesses and managing their teams and all of that. So the question is, how do you really leverage their time and get the most out of the amount of time that you can and do get from them? So Adam, if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about the things that we try to help organizations do from their managers. We want to get the maximum impact for the minimum amount of time, right? If you can only get literally a minute of their time, what can you do with that? How can you amplify that? How do you really leverage that? And the two things that we ask hiring managers to do are to create a 20-second video about the job, and they can film it on their phone, their tablet, their webcam, whatever they've got. It's truly 20 seconds. It's not done in the studio. You don't have to schedule time for it. They can do it anytime they want, on any device they want. But what they're asked to do is put a human face on the job and make it personal and make it authentic. And I love, you know, John's comment about real people talking authentically. When we ask hiring managers, or our clients ask their hiring managers to make a 20-second video, it's not scripted. There's some loose guidelines around the kinds of things to talk about the job's appeal. You know, why would somebody want this job? What is it about it? And all it's meant to do is spark interest in a job. But a text-only job description isn't going to excite anybody. I'm going to assume of all the people on the call right now, let me assume that none of you are actually looking for a job. Would you really be tempted to give up your current job for a list of required skills and preferred skills? That's not exciting to anybody. You've got to understand, with all these passive candidates we're talking about, what is it that's going to pique their interest and have them say, gee, I'd like to either engage with a recruiter or return this call or something. You've got to give them some reason to take action and respond to you. And realistically, your hiring managers are the ones who know that information best. They know where the excitement for the job, they know where the satisfaction is, they know where the challenge is, they know what's cool about this job. Right? They're working in the company, clearly there's some work that they're getting satisfaction out of. They're the ones that are best apt to communicate that. And then the second thing we ask them to do is just take and share the information with their network, whether they post it on LinkedIn, whether they tweet it out of their personal Twitter account, whether they post it on Facebook, however, you know, and in Sparc we build this all in so it's a single click to go and share it on a network. But that's something that can happen quite literally in a matter of seconds. And that gets the information in front of the people that are most likely to be qualified. And if you can do that in under a minute of hiring manager time, you've just gotten a whole lot of bang for your buck, quite honestly. Let's look at what some of these 20-second videos look like. Adam, can you add to the chat? Let's see if we can send a link. There's one already.
Yep.
I'm just going to ask. Okay. I'm just going to take, I believe the first one is an 11-second long video from a hiring manager. I'll let you all just click on that link, assuming that works, and just listen to the hiring manager video for 11 seconds. Can someone confirm that they can do that?
I've had thumbs up confirmation.
Excellent. Okay. And Adam, if you advance to the next slide.
Yeah, I can also see the audience view has gone right down because everybody's taking a look at it. So everybody's coming back now. So
okay. And if you got this, you got both links. Got it. All right, do we have most folks back, hopefully?
we do.
Okay, great. So these are obviously just two examples. The first one, the woman who's the hiring manager for Smidgen, that's 11 seconds long. And it's not an entire job description. It doesn't tell you everything you need to know, but it does tell you a bunch of things. Because Smidgen is a startup, they have a story they need to tell, right? No one's out there looking for a job with them because they're too small to be well known. They're not a major corporation that's a household name. So there's just enough information about what the company is. You're just looking at the background, you get a sense. You've got an open work environment here. You get a little sense for the energy that's going on there. You get a little sense of the personality of the individual you'll be working for. It conveys a lot, and it took quite literally 11 seconds of her time, which was really powerful. The second video was one from Fidelity, and that was longer, much longer than we recommend, quite honestly. We recommend that you keep the videos under 30 seconds, but still thought a great example because this is a real person. This is the guy who'd be your boss. He clearly is energized and excited about the job. He provides enough information that if you are really interested in the kinds of things that they're doing on that team, you'd know it. The other thing that we're finding kind of interesting by having the hiring managers record these short videos is that, and in almost all cases, the engagement and the number of people who actually apply doubles. Our numbers say versus any posting a text-only job description, if you go out there with a Sparc, you double it. But by having the hiring manager talk about the job, we've had some positions, particularly tech roles, where the client's actually seen fewer applications, but more qualified applications, so more people are making it through the phone screen. And we think the reason for this is that we've all gotten numb to the list of, required skills. You need 15 years of Ruby on Rails experience. Well, Ruby hasn't been around for 15 years, so we all understand that all those required skills and experience aren't real. But when you hear the hiring manager say, hey, look, I'm looking for a Python developer who does large data tables and is involved in this, the other thing, if you don't have that and you've heard the hiring manager talk about it, you can pretty much figure out you're not going to get through that interview and get hired. So people are making smarter decisions about opting in or opting out. It's a great way to have your hiring manager help the efficiency of your entire process. You put a human face on it, you make it real, you communicate the interest in the job, and the hiring manager just helps bring the candidates to the table. Then recruiting's got to kick in, and they've got to do all the things that they do well, right? This doesn't solve everything. It doesn't instantly give you, full slates, but it does take all of those passive candidates and give them a reason to engage with you. So we found that when you use these hiring managers to do the videos, have them talk very specifically about the job, and kind of challenge them. What about this job is exciting? It really makes a huge difference in how the hiring manager feels like they've got some skin in the job, and they've got a vested interest in the process as well as the outcome, which is really important. And the other piece is when they share the job, we encourage them to, if they're posting it on LinkedIn, tag a couple of people that might potentially know candidates. Hey, if you're interested, or you know anybody who's appropriate for this job, really would appreciate a referral, that kind of thing. Adam, if you go to the next slide, I'll show you an example of this. This happened to be a hiring manager who put the Sparc that he was in his LinkedIn feed, and I cut this in half, so hopefully you can read a little bit of the right-hand side. We think we took this screenshot maybe an hour after it went up. He had 68 likes. Within 2 hours, he was over 80 likes. Over 80 people in his network had liked the Sparc. You can see some of the comments on the right-hand side. And you can't pay for this kind of advertising. If you look through some of the ones, looks nice, great video. You can see in the middle of the page, I'll transfer out to Edmund. You would be an awesome boss. To get people in your network to, every time those people commented, the comments got shared with their networks. And this Sparc had hundreds going to thousands of views and applications, which in Tempe, Arizona, which is a tough hiring market these days, was just incredible. So here's a hiring manager used, I can't see, his video was probably somewhere around 24 to 28 seconds. That's what most of them tend to be. Another minute or so, he just shared it on his LinkedIn profile and had an amazing amount of impact on the visibility for the job, on the people who are, aware of it and potentially applied for it. Just wildly successful. So when we talk about hiring managers, I keep going back to this. You're only going to get a little bit of time. Make the most of it. Let them do what they do well, and then go ahead and leverage it for all it's worth. Adam, questions?
Brilliant. Okay, I've got quite a few. So the first one from me is, are there any industries where hiring managers are like clearly better qualified to just do a Sparc? Are there any industries where it is like much harder to get people to do it?
Great question, and we get surprised by this all the time. We originally thought that Sparcs would be used for sort of middle management jobs. And I'll give the example. We had actually one of the venture capital firms on the West Coast was trying to recruit from some of the more prestigious venture capital firms, and they had identified 6 people that they wanted to recruit, and they couldn't get any kind of response or any attention from those 6 people. So they made a Sparc and used the magic phrase, click below to meet your boss. Let's tell you that's clickbait. People see that, and even if they're not looking for a job, they just click on it because they're curious about who this joker is who thinks they're going to be, my new boss. And they got 4 of the 6 people to respond. And these are, very high level, very highly compensated people. On the other end of the spectrum, we had a call center that was using this, and so that's lower education requirements and just a different group. And that went viral among people because video is the preferred medium. People would rather watch video than read paragraphs of text. So when you do something that's designed for mobile and got video, we'd rather have somebody talk to us and tell us about it than hand us paragraphs of text to read on our mobile devices. So it really does run the gamut. And the kinds of videos that people make are absolutely different. We've got tech people who I've listened to some of the videos and I don't understand a word of it.
Yeah.
But that's great. For the people who understand it and want it, it's terrific. For others, we've had people talk about, we've got a hospital chain that's right now using it, and we've got some nurses just talking about the satisfaction of the job and being in an environment where they get to do work that is fulfilling to them. Very different kind of message than a very tech one. But the cool thing is people gravitate to what's important to them and tends to be important to other people doing the job. We talk all the time about, people recognize their tribe. I laugh all the time. Some of the developers that are on, we've got clients that say, "Oh, we could never put our hiring managers on. They haven't combed their hair in 6 years down in our IT department." It's like, that's okay. The folks you're hiring look just like them. They've got the same fashion sense, and there's something really compelling about seeing folks that look like the kind of folks you went to school with, the kind of folks that you go out for beers with, the kind of folks that you're comfortable working with. They don't have to be movie stars, and quite frankly, movie stars get to be a little intimidating if you thought you were going to work with them every day. What you want are people you can relate to. Kind of a job where it kind of feels like home, and so putting real people in there makes a huge difference. So it varies. The kinds of videos they make are different, but it really goes from very high tech to very low tech and so forth, and it works.
So I'm going to make an assumption here, and I'm sure it's wrong, but it might well be correct. I'm assuming that a hiring manager who's 28 years old is going to be more comfortable with doing this than one who's 38, than one who's 48, than one who's 58. Have you noticed that, or not really?
We started out with that same assumption. Like, let's go to the younger folks. They'll be more comfortable making video. And then we got a gentleman who was easily in his 60s, and I think I'm being conservative there, white-haired, was a quantitative analyst, which we thought, oh my God, this is the driest job in the world, with an elderly man. Oh, this can't possibly turn out well. And he's in a cubicle that's completely stark. So we started to watch the video, and he knocked it out of the park. It was clearly a job that he loved, and it didn't have the kind of bubbly enthusiasm that you expect from someone else, but again, for the kinds of people who wanted to do the kind of work he did, that worked. We find video phobia runs across the age groups because nobody wants to look foolish. And there's no doubt that when you start using Sparks, getting the initial videos are hard. People don't know what's expected of them. They don't want to look silly. But what happens is, as soon as they see their colleagues doing it, and as soon as you communicate to them that it doesn't have to be perfect, they're so used to seeing corporate videos that are lit and scripted and are so highly produced that they think they have to mimic that. But when they understand, no, you can just talk to people. Just pick up your phone and talk to people. It makes it very different. Some of the very best videos are ones where people stumble over a word or lose their train of thought or look up because they're trying to think of something. The credibility is just amazing. You believe these guys because they are real people and they're just talking to you about a job that they really like or they've got a job to offer that they genuinely believe is a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when you create something that's highly finessed, it can be off-putting to some of the best candidates might feel, well, that looks too polished and I'm not really polished, even though they might be the best people for the job. So they might rule themselves out when in actual fact, if it had been authentic, done on an iPhone or whatever, and done with, as you just said, the person stumbling over a word here and there, and it might have got them to apply. So I think that's great. Question about the thing about the Netflix recruiter and hiring manager at your conference last week, that's amazing. 50% of your time on recruiting. I've heard of there's one company we work with, a spirits company, where the hiring managers spend about 40% of their time on recruiting, but there is no talent acquisition team. So that's really why. But I absolutely love the fact that Netflix are making hiring managers totally accountable for their team and the perform. I mean, that's making them really accountable for performance. So
Right.
I think that's
it puts recruiting in the role of advisor, of real expert on how to do this and guiding the process, and sort of contributing as almost like a consultant to the process. Not that they don't, they do screening interviews and those sorts of things, but their role really is to make sure that the best people are brought in, not that you've got the rec filled in 23 days. And it's a whole different approach to really bringing on talent.
John, you have been encouraging hiring managers to do various different things to kind of create community and build up their list of potential candidates. How do you think the concept of getting them to do a short video to attach to get people to apply would work?
I think it depends. I think many of them would be up for it. We've done our own in-house video team, and we've profiled some managers. But Maury's kind of product sounds easy because we have to get people with a small camera or whatever to go out and shoot it and then edit it. But absolutely, so, I think some I guess it depends. Some would be more comfortable than others, but pretty much everyone we speak to probably would. Recruiting is a pain for them. Think of it that way, and if you can find some way of saying, look, this is going to make it easier, they will be on board, because for them it is just a pain in the arse.
And John,
they want to get rid of that pain as quickly and as painlessly as they can.
And John, you'll find there'll also be some a dynamic that if they see some hiring managers that have got the video and all this kind of multimedia, mobile friendly, social share built-in kind of stuff, and they see that one of their colleagues is having their job recruited for with all this cool stuff, and they've got a job description which is all text that's somewhere on a job board, they're pretty quickly going to want to have the cool stuff for themselves as well, because they'll just see the difference in candidates. So it's interesting how this builds over time. If people go, oh yeah, it's like putting an ad in the newspaper. You don't want to do that anymore. It's just not how you find candidates. So you understand it's a new game in town.
Yeah. One other thing I just wanted to touch on was this concept that you were talking about, John, about talking to the hiring managers about who are they connected to, who do they know. Our friends at Weetabix do something just brilliant, and I can't remember the exact term that they call it, but it's something like a sourcing party. And basically they get all the members, let's say they're recruiting in the brand team, they get the brand team together, the recruiting team puts on beers and pizza, and basically just goes through, here's some good ideas around how you can be using LinkedIn, and gives them some social media connections, but at the same time says, right, and also export all your connections and let's talk through them and talk through who's going to be good for these vacancies and who we need to be talking to and recruiting right now. That kind of concept is becoming clearly more popular, and I particularly like it.
And Adam, can I build on that one? It's a little different, but one of the best things I've heard recently, I'm part of the candidate experience council, and at a workshop recently, West Monroe Partners told the group that they are hiring food trucks. I don't know if food trucks are as big in the UK as they are here, but food trucks are the new gourmet food. But they're hiring food trucks and parking them outside of competitors' offices and offering free lunch, and having a couple of their hiring managers go over and just like stand around the food truck, and just costs them, not that much. They give away, maybe 50 lunches, but it's just a great way to get visibility and do some connections, and I just loved how novel it was.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. People love free things, but especially gourmet food. Great. Okay. So thank you very much to John and to Maury. I've really enjoyed this session. It's a real passion of mine. The whole concept of bringing hiring managers into the middle of talent attraction, and I think they enjoy it as well when they get a bit of guidance on how they could be doing it and how they can be contributing. I've only ever found them to kind of enjoy it. So I think that this is great. I'm going to be introducing Maury to a number of our clients. John, please keep in touch. I'm sure we'll talk about all the new initiatives that you're working on. You're tracking all of that. And thanks very much to the 40 or so people who've signed in for the talent talk today on both sides of the Atlantic. It's been transatlantic today, which we like. So yeah, many thanks, and look out for our next talent talks. If you don't know who we are, how to find us, Candidate.ID is on LinkedIn. You'll find us there. We broadcast our talent talks there, and also we're on Twitter at Candidate_ID. And if anybody's interested in joining our new community, our new online community, which is about every subject relating to talent pipelining. It's about the art of talent pipelining. Go to talentpipe.org, and as long as you're relevant, put in your email address in there, and we'll make sure you get added to the community. So, thanks very much, and until next time, have a great weekend. Bye for now.
Thanks, Adam.